My name is Freeman Michaels.
And my name is Danielle St. John. I am running for Congress in California's 49th District.
And we wanted to talk a little bit about some news items today and then get into what life could be like in a cooperative city.
Okay, so I think what it seems to be on everybody's mind today is the March for Your Life protests. And it seems like it's kind of, I mean, it's I guess some people are kind of inspired by it. It's kids, it's teenagers who are scared, basically, of
teachers,
right, who are scared of what's going on in the schools, what's going on in the country. So as far as guns go, so that's really, it's really awesome that I'm sure there are a lot of really great people out there marching and that have the best intentions. I just kind of question where these. How did they organize this quickly, and why is the media allowing coverage of it? I always question the media with this stuff. It's not new. So
one of the things I found, like I talked to some of my progressive friends and people who I actually know outside of talking politics online, and the thing that I don't think they accept is how extreme the people who want to keep their guns. I don't think they see how extreme that position is and how ready and willing they are, the gun owner, not necessarily the NRA, but the gun owners are ready and willing to come to the table and figure out how we can make our community safe with guns. And a lot of progressives have this full stop, hey, we're going to ban guns or ban this certain gun, and we haven't had the serious conversation of what the implications are and what the other side thinks the implications are. And it's not what you think, it's what both sides think together. And there is one side in this equation that has a massive distrust of the government. And for me, that comes around to, these are the same people that kind of stole our democracy. They're the same people that made our healthcare worse, and they're the same people that kept us at war for 93% of our history. And I'm kind of done trusting their proposed solutions. We absolutely need something done with guns, and we need it done immediately. But I don't want to even entertain the thought of disarming the public, even though the AR-15 to me is nothing special. It's not like I'm fighting for that gun. But it is a step towards disarming the public in a way that I think is dangerous to giving people who are, taking us to war, giving them more power. And the media, which is what you were talking about, seems to be in lockstep in terms of taking us to war and going along with this gun protest. Because you were talking about some gun things, or how they were covering protests.
Mm-hmm. I was actually talking about it this morning on a Facebook post. But I put 3 examples of how the media portrays, how they cover protests that I believe were very meaningful and they needed to happen. And the ones that I believe are the most important really are the ones that are getting covered very slanted. Like, for instance, there was a protest, a very peaceful protest going on at the DNC convention in
2016.
In 2016.
That was with the Bernie and Hillary convention.
Yes, exactly. And so there's this CNN coverage of oh, wait a second, we're going to need to go live outside because there's these protesters that are causing all this trouble, and there's all these like buzzwords like civil disobedience, right. And then the reporter outside slipped up and said, oh, don't worry, they're letting the police go by. So they're cooperating, right?
Right, they were cooperating, and then they show the video clip of all the protesters cooperating.
Mm-hmm. And then they're, sorry, we got to cut to Boys to Men performing live on stage.
They cut to Boys to Men a couple times.
Yeah,
I feel like.
Right. And so, and then there was another one, this DAPL protest, was very, very meaningful. And I know I met a lot of really great activists because of it. And, the media coverage, there was one Fox News clip in particular where they were, I guess, bashing the list of demands that the protesters had.
It's like they have any power.
Right, because the protesters were asking for donations, right? They were like in the middle of nowhere, snow up to their neck, right? So they asked for some things that, would help them communicate, would help them stay warm. These are ridiculous temperatures that they were facing.
And the news was like, and they have the nerve to ask for cigarettes. I'm like, Yeah, well, when people are stressed out, they like to smoke. I mean, not me, but it's like, is that really a amazing demand for a protester?
Right, and I just it really kind of highlights what the media chooses to slant, how they
Mm-hmm.
choose to slant most protests. There was actually another one, was it an Occupy Wall Street one, where these weekend reporters were going back and forth about one mother who left her family for 2 weeks or so, to go and be a part of this protest, which was very, it was a big movement, and she was being interviewed, and she said that she left, like, 3 kids home, and they were, getting a little bit older with dad, right? And that, that she felt like this was the same as soldiers going overseas and fighting for their country, that she felt this was just as important, because this is really a way that we need to, we have to fight this if we're going to get our country back, right? And these reporters were just, they were like, what a scumbag. They were well, I forget the word that disgusting. I think they said that she was disgusting for comparing herself to a soldier. So now when you see these marches, organized by teenagers and teachers, yes, you just have to really kind of question their agenda. Why is it that we have better security right now in banks than we do for schools? Why wasn't there a march for that? Why wasn't there a march needed for bank safety?
And
right?
I also don't think that these marches were organized by teachers and students, or at least they weren't funded and created with the intent. I feel like there is a lot of money, and I didn't look into it, I didn't research it, but all you have to ask yourself is there a financial incentive in society for it to get done? And there's probably some a-hole out there who's willing to get it done. And if there is a lot of angst towards gun violence, you can bet that there's someone who wants to profit off of that angst. And to me, there was some similarities with the Women's March, and that march to me wasn't pro-women, it was anti-Trump. And
Right.
someone was taking the perhaps very valid angst that a lot of women were feeling with Trump elected, and a lot of my friends were in that boat, and I totally get it, but they were taking that and trying to use that emotion and for their advantage, and some financial advantage. And for this gun stuff, I feel like it is just another little chip away, and it's going to be a serious chip away, and there wouldn't be so much money in disarming the public if someone didn't really want it. And I think if you're going to have a lot of money supporting your movement and supporting your angst, that you ought to ask and figure out what their agenda is, because it may not be the same as yours.
Yeah, exactly.
Or you may not be questioning it. Like, there were some people in the protest saying, well, I don't care if the band does anything, we just need to do something. I'm like, no, this is the wrong time to say we just need to do something. We need to do something smart, and we need to come to the table and have people talk to each other.
And I think, I've said this before, but I'm not even sure if passing common sense gun laws at this point would work, because we're talking about...
It ignores the source.
Right, it ignores the source of the problem. So, I don't know. I think that one of the agenda's top priorities, I'm not even sure if taking away guns is the top priority, honestly. I think the top priority is to keep us divided, to keep us fighting each other. Look at your Facebook feed, you see it. It's there. Everybody's mad at something right now, And so just keep that in mind, that when we decide to stop listening to the other side, if we stop offering our perspectives and stop accepting other perspectives, they win. There's no way for us to come together and to beat this. They only gain when we divide ourselves.
Yeah. So we were supposed to only do a 15-minute stream about cooperative cities, and we just did 10 minutes on the news. But let's
Talk
do
real fast.
Yeah, well, we'll do 10 minutes of cooperative cities. Recap on this is built on the cooperative economy, which is part of Danielle's main part of Danielle's platform, and that is open source philosophy marries small business. And we are going to have a 7-minute explainer video out hopefully in the middle of this week. That's coming along. So what happens? Really, yeah, we love it. It's exciting. So what happens when you start sharing this and we start doing this? We're suggesting that society generally focus on food, news, and health, so that populations can be sustainable and independent with their local communities for their food supply, for their health care, and this is more like health care as opposed to sick care or sick maintenance and whatnot. So this is true health care. And then, of course, we need to be able to communicate, and so that will be news. And then once we start sharing and we have the efficiency, and this is all part of the original cooperative economy, go to humanitarises.info and look up New Economy to get the details on this. But just as a quick refresher, once you get those basic services, you have to work less in your life just to get the basic needs. And once your community has food, news, and health, you can start moving into energy, education, and transportation. And then you move into manufacturing and design. And this is about a 5-year process if you implement it aggressively. And so what we wanted to talk about today is when your communities now have enough resources and you're starting manufacturing things, you're going to have enough free time where you're going to say, now what? What are we going to do? And I think we're going to want to replace our current cities, because our current cities are designed effectively to support consumerism and consumption and capitalism. When you drive down a road, you see billboards, you see advertisements, you see storefronts, and you see parking lots. And it's like the whole point of going to a city is to do business and buy things and be marketed to. And in a cooperative city, you're not going to have that intention, because no one is trying to chase, tons of wealth and try to gain more for themselves. It's more about how can you make your community better. That was a huge mouthful. Do you want to chime in, or should I keep going?
No, yeah, I definitely want to chime in with that. I think that one thing that we can talk about, I guess, eliminating immediately once we get to a certain threshold is traffic, right? Even with just the things that we have in place right now, when we are not stuck in this 9 to 5 mentality, then just right away we're free to travel at all other times instead of when everybody's on the road at the same time, right? So the little irritations of everyday life kind of just go away, once we start implementing these philosophies.
And think about when roads are built now. Are they built to maximize how quickly you can get to and from work, or are they built just enough such that whoever's doing business and paying for them, or they're built just enough so that whoever needs those roads can get their business done? And we're talking about big business. It's not like the little guy running a shop. It's the investors who are developing, say, Mission Valley in San Diego. It's like, how much of 15 was expanded, and did you have a voice in that? And the answer is no, of course you didn't, because you don't have money, and their goal isn't our happiness. The goal is to do whatever commerce needs, and nothing more. In fact, probably a little bit less, because they can get away with it.
Right.
So, the transportation, though, is really interesting, because inside of a city, there's no reason why the utility transportation needs to be in the same place where people are biking, walking. There's certainly a lot of electronic bikes now downtown, or maybe there'll be electronic cars and whatnot. So the very face of how you move about through the city is going to change, because the utility will be in a different area. And then if you're not going to be marketed to every step of the way, and there's not storefronts and there's not parking lots, because you don't need to have your own car, you can have a driverless car. It's like everything changes on the front. And what becomes interesting is that it's no longer the cookie cutter cities that we have now. It seems like you can go to another city, and every other mall, they have a Panera Bread and a bunch of other crap that I don't want to eat. And if you have cooperative cities, it's going to be whatever personality that city wants. And it's not just food, but it is, we wrote down a bunch of stuff. Your city may be more interested in science, or they may be interested in some sort of space travel, and they may be interested in arts, or they may be interested in more entertainment. And your city and your community will be known for what did they do with their free time. Well, I don't know if you wanted to add any of those. Like, we were going to talk about some examples for for entertainment. We were just talking about, I think it would be fun to have an augmented reality game. And right now, pretty much any entertainment that we go to, it either seems like it has to be put on by the city or a nonprofit, or it's going to be for someone to make money. And that limits what type of game you would want to play, because it would have to be profitable, or it would have to be safe for the city, or have to be easy for the city. But when the goal becomes entertaining people, and when the goal becomes to bring us out of our shells and make us more human and have fun and forget all the stress of life, I think the types of games that we come up with can be different. And one easy thing would be an augmented reality game where you would have, and again, this is just if anyone has the idea, they can go do it and just throw it out there, and that's what's great about the economy. But you can have augmented reality glasses or like virtual reality, and then instead of seeing everything that you see everything that you see plus additional objects and like additional digital objects in space. And you can create like a citywide scavenger hunt or Where's Waldo, and all. I mean, there's tons of different games that you could do with this type of technology. And as long as the goal is to entertain and have fun and not try to figure out how you're going to weasel more money out of people, the better the end result will be.
Yeah, I was thinking, I live in a beach city, so I'm, always beach oriented. But I was thinking that, like think about lawyers and CPAs, moms and dads that just, spend a lot of time away from their families. When maybe they're passionate, maybe they get up these same parents even now get up every single morning at at 5 a.m. and they go surf or something like that. They can get now that their occupation isn't really tying them to a desk all day, they can offer surf lessons to kids or to to adults. You're really free to share your passion with the people around you more freely because you're free with your time, you're free with your energy.
And that's one thing I think I glossed over and I skipped, that once you are in this paradigm and you're out of this capitalist paradigm, you're not going to have the stress of, oh my God, is my car going to break down? How am I going to pay off my student loans? Am I going to have food? Is my neighborhood safe? Do I have access to health insurance? Am I going to be safe in my retirement? All of that goes away, and you are living a completely different life. And people are more than willing to contribute to a project if they feel like that project is giving them something in return. And it would surprise me if people weren't willing to give 20, 30 hours a month in exchange for food, news, and health. That seems like an incredibly good bargain. And once your community builds up manufacturing and resources because they have their own energy supply, then housing doesn't even become an issue. And that's when humanity truly can be free. And we can start to figure out what we would want to do as opposed to what we have to do when we grow up.
Mm-hmm. And we keep having this term just kind of thrown out to us, this utopian society.
Oh, right. Every time we bring it up, they're like, oh, that sounds like utopian. I'm like,
society.
Well, it sounds a hell of a lot better, but no.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's like, can somebody please offer me an alternative to this, to something that is sustainable? I mean, because that's what we all want with our government. That's what we're trying to do for us, for our family, is sustainability. We're trying to have our basic needs met. So this to me it's not really even, it's not utopian, it's just cooperative. It's like, I don't know how cooperation turned into perfection, but,
right. And there's something to be said by, like I think we described in a cooperative building, or maybe I did it in another speech, how there's no reason why your building wouldn't have automated laundry service, and there's no reason why your building wouldn't have observation deck and a rooftop bar and automated kitchen. It's like, because that's all easy technologically, and it's easy in terms of how many resources are required to get that. And that sounds utopian, but it really isn't. And you just have to start. The hardest part is the start, and you just have to start with getting a populace to be independent in their food and their health, because that's going to free people to say, you know what, maybe I don't trust the Democrats as much and we can apply a little more pressure, or maybe I don't trust, of course, the Republicans. That's always an assumption for me. I never trust them. But people are going to be moving about through their life with a different perspective because they're not going to be dealing with so much stress. And I think that's going to free a lot of us to be able to be more of who we wanted to be when we were younger, as opposed to what capitalism dictates that we had to be.
Right.
It's like just the very question of, what do you want to be when you grow up? Do you want to be a lawyer and interpret some BS law that was made by a bunch of lobbyists to try and get someone off, or to try and make your career better? It's like that's not really what people want. And just like the people that we see walking down holding the sign down the street for the union, it's like, I've seen these people there for a year now. This can't possibly be what they want to do with their lives. And the cooperative economy negates all this recession and not having jobs and this wealth inequality, and it's not communism, it's not top down, and it's not utopia. It's something that we all have to build, and it's something that we're all going to have to learn how to do together.
Right. And what we're talking about right now is kind of end goal kind of, we're having you picture what's going to happen at the end. But right now, we're trying to stick with the things that can make the biggest energy shift if you didn't have to stress about, food, news, or health, really. Mm-hmm. These are, we've talked about these things, but right now, like, you just look at the health aspect of it. I've heard it described as a three-legged stool, right? You've got, the healthcare providers, the facilities, and the insurance company, right? Like, and you have to have all three legs in order for this to stand. But that's really just not the case. The insurance company is really just something that's holding on to and sucking profit out of an industry.
They're not providing any service.
Exactly. They're not, maybe they fill out some forms and deny some claims and stuff, but they really just shackle our healthcare providers. So, one thing that we can do is really just understand that we don't need this industry to be healthy, right? And so that's why we're trying to remove the greed and profit out of these food, news, and health industries, and I think that we would be in a much better position energy-wise and time-wise to keep moving this movement forward.
Absolutely. And the thing that I want to challenge, especially my fellow progressives, but even conservatives, do you trust politicians and do you trust the government? And not necessarily some individuals or what your heart tells you. Look at how much influence we have over our politicians, and think about how much, a few extra billion getting lost in the Pentagon every year, how wild someone in some institution can run. Is this really where we want to be focusing our solutions? Especially when the solutions are like, oh, well, darn, we didn't get enough good Democrats this time. Let's try again in 2 years. And it's like, I feel like we're setting ourselves up for eternal disappointment. And I keep going back to California's SB 562, where we have a supermajority of Democrats, and they were the ones that prevented that bill. And they say, well, it wasn't ready. To me, that's a crap answer as well. How could you not be ready with single-payer healthcare or Medicare for all? Isn't that the very thing that you are saying to your constituents that you want? You would think, like, I know the military has plans for everything, just in case Canada invades. Our military is ready. They got some plans, probably out of date by now, but it's like they have a plan for it. And why aren't the Democrats, why don't they have a single-payer plan ready, or a Medicare for all plan ready? And the reality is that they are only trying to fundraise off of the progressive product while preventing progressive ideas from actually being implemented. And that's where their fundraising comes in. So we need to think long and hard before we turn to them for our gun solutions and turn to them for any of our solutions. And that's why food, news, and health is one of our priorities.
And by the way, they do have a government plan besides Medicare for all, or Medicare, that was set up by the government. TRICARE, I believe it's United Healthcare now, is what actually does the military's insurance, and that's for their the spouses and children. And I think active military. Correct me if I'm wrong on that, but it's the best insurance. I mean, and of course they've got children and maternity on there, because that was actually one argument against Medicare for all, is it's not ready as it stands now, because it's only for people over 65 or whatever. There's no pediatrics considered on there. There's no maternity. There's no birth control. Like there's no women's reproductive services on considered on these. But there is a plan that we have put together for active duty military spouses and children that is fantastic. So when they say that they don't have a plan ready for it, it's just a lie.
Yeah,
or they don't know what they're talking about.
Or it's like they haven't gone through the basic steps of converting what was a good plan over here. Like they had Romney Care and it converted to Obamacare, and I wasn't a fan of either. But it's like they could do it if they wanted, but they're spending all of their time fundraising. Mm-hmm. And for people who say we're going to fight for Medicare, I feel like anyone who campaigns and says, yes, I'm going to get you Medicare, or even just leaves you with the hope of we're going to fight for Medicare, without acknowledging how are you going to get all these super progressives into office, and how are you going to make sure that they don't get corrupted by the same greed that seems to corrupt everybody else? That we need to be honest with ourselves and answer these questions before we continue down the same path. Because I think it's like, let's be real with ourselves. We have Trump as president, and your thoughts on that aside, that should be a wake-up call that we should no longer continue doing the same things the same way.
Agreed. Well, we're way over time, I think.
Right, yeah. So that was our quick rant on cooperative cities, our not-so-utopian paradise. And we will talk about that more in the future. Actually, do you want to look and see if there's any comments?
I guess so. We should do that.
See if there's anything that anyone had to say, if we missed something basic. No. I feel guilty for the awesome insurance I have through my veteran husband.
It's really good.
I feel
right?
guilty.
Don't
feel guilty living here. It's like, this is ridiculous. Like, there's homeless people that just live right over there.
Oh, and anybody
Sustainable society. Amen to that.
Anybody that has this insurance, especially the TRICARE, or I think it's United Healthcare now, I can get dental covered under the medical portion of it. So let me know. I mean, I guess I'm a little bit busy now, but I can definitely get you hooked up with somebody who can help you out with codes and stuff, because that's something that's offered.
So Justin says, what would the transition from a consumer-driven economy be to a cooperative economy? Look, that is a brilliant question, because that's what a lot of people always want to know, is how is it going to affect me? And the way I like to describe it is that right now we have capitalism, and then we have the cooperative economy. Let me see if I can get it right up there. And cooperative economy is at zero because it hasn't started. And over time, eventually, hey, we start growing some food, and we get dependent on this, and we got some news and health. And then capitalism just slowly drops off. And once you get to the point where you have energy, education, transportation, manufacturing, then all of a sudden there's going to be someone that says, you know what, I can live a simple enough life. I don't even need capitalism. And maybe that guy is living out in a cabin or something, but they're still sustainable and independent. And then the more manufacturing design happens in the cooperative economy, all of a sudden capitalism just phases out because enough people say, we don't need it. Like, the only thing you're going to need capitalism for is to maybe buy your own personal yacht. But maybe if you lived in a well put together cooperative city, they would have a yacht for you to use every few weeks out of 5 years, because it's easy enough for 1 million people to go in on a yacht and then just have a party every few years because you get your 2 weeks. It's like that is easy and trivial to do if you have resources and energy available. B. John Milk, oh, TRICARE is great. Have friends who should. Well, I think that's it for that feed. Cool. Alrighty.
Okay. Well, I think that's all we have for now.
Well, thanks everybody.
Bye.
I'll talk to you soon.